Abandoning traditional views of Christianity and church. A new survey from the American Worldview Inventory shows a significant shift in church attendance and core religious beliefs. At the start of the COVID pandemic, 39% of American adults said they attended church at least once a week. Today, that number is down to 33%. Well, here to explain is Christian Pollster, director of the Cultural Research Center at Arizona Christian University, George Barna. His new book, released this week, is Raising Spiritual Champions, Nurturing Your Child's Heart, Mind, and Soul. George, what do you make of these latest findings from AWVI? I'm sure you were not surprised.
Well, no, as we did the research, we've seen the pattern unfolding over the course of the pandemic and since. And I think what's happened is a lot of adults in America have sat back and tried to figure out, what do I really need? What don't I need in my life? Things are getting more complicated, more difficult, more expensive. How do I make sense out of life? And as they've evaluated every institution and every relationship and every opportunity, one of the things that millions of Americans have concluded is, you know what, the church really wasn't adding much value to my life. I can probably get the same kind of value in other ways. And so that's exactly what's happening. It's not that people have necessarily given up on faith. They're simply looking to have it delivered and experienced through different channels, different pathways. And so we have a lot of people who used to regularly go to a physical church setting. Now, many of them are using the media to find spiritual conversations and experiences. Others of them are simply pursuing that through personal relationships with other people they know who are going through the same kind of questioning process in their life, trying to figure out what makes sense. So, there's still hope that Americans will retain a deeper sense of spirituality, although right now they're scrambling just to make ends meet.
George, what role do the churches play in this? I mean, it seems like the church is becoming more like the culture, trying to win people that way rather than have the culture embrace the church.
Yeah, I would say over the last decade, Gary, one of the consistent results that we've uncovered is that the culture is influencing churches more than churches are influencing the culture. And so as people are trying to come up with solutions to how to lead a meaningful life, how to find significance in life, how to achieve success, and even how to define that, churches aren't helping them. And a lot of that comes from how we discovered pastors measure success in churches. There tend to be 5 factors: attendance, giving patterns, number of programs offered, number of staff people hired, amount of square footage that's been built out. It's great to measure stuff, but you get what you measure. And the reality is that Jesus didn't die for any of those 5 measures. So when we take our eyes off the cross and we cease to be organizations and communities that are focused on discipleship, but rather we're focused on growth and reputation and size, things of that matter, that's when we really lose our trail.
George, in your new book, you talk about parents discipling their children, raising them up in the way of the Lord, embracing and putting their biblical beliefs into action. So why, in your opinion, are many parents falling short?
Well, it's an issue of priorities. As we did 7 original research projects for that particular book, Raising Spiritual Champions, what we found is that parents have a lot of priorities. Their children are among them, but their children's faith tends not to be on the upper half of the list of priorities. And so what happens is faith gets pushed to the back burner, and parents tend to settle for some kind of religious activity. Maybe it's dropping their kids off at a Sunday school. Maybe it's just having religious music on in the car when they're transported from school back home in the afternoon. There are a lot of different things that parents are trying to balance and juggle, and faith is not a priority.
And you devote a chapter to managing media exposure. How important is that? It seems kids are spending more time on TikTok than they are in church or reading God's Word.
Yeah, it's a critical dimension because as we looked at what influences children the most, what we found was by far the number one influence is arts and entertainment media. And so one of the things that we discovered in doing all the research for the book is that parents are no longer trusted very much by their children when it comes to matters such as worldview. How do I make my decisions and choices from day to day? What they find is that their parents say one thing and do another, which has sent an important message to kids that their parents are just as confused as they are. So they say, I better not pay so much attention to my parents because they're still trying to figure it out as well. Instead, what we found is that they're paying attention to movies and video games and music and other forms of media, because in those short bursts, those media vehicles are conveying a consistent worldview. It may not be the right one, it may not be the best one for the child, but it's consistent. And children are looking for consistency as they try to put together in their minds and hearts, how does the world work? Who am I within that world? How can I succeed within it?
Okay, some good advice for parents. The book is Raising Spiritual Champions, Nurturing Your Child's Heart, Mind, and Soul. George Barna, it's always a pleasure talking with you. Thank you for those insights. God bless you.
Thank you, Gary.